Did you know that one of the most successful musicians of all time didn't learn how to read music? That's right, Paul McCartney, the legend behind some of the most iconic songs ever written, created melodies from pure intuition. Stay with us to explore how Paul went from playing in a local skiffle band to revolutionizing the music world and continuing to perform even in his 80s. You won't want to miss this. Hey everyone, welcome back to Timelines Unlocked. Today, we're diving deep into the incredible life of Sir Paul McCartney. Whether you know him from the Beatles, his solo work, or even his activism, Paul's influence on music and culture is undeniable. But how did a working-class kid from Liverpool rise to become one of the greatest musicians in history? Let's find out. Paul McCartney was born on June 18, 1942, in Liverpool, England. The world he grew up in was a far cry from the bright lights and sold-out arenas he would later know. Paul's father, Jim McCartney, was a jazz pianist, and music filled the McCartney household. But Paul's life took a tragic turn when his mother, Mary, passed away from cancer when he was just 14 years old. This profound loss deeply impacted Paul, but it also gave him an emotional depth that would seep into his songwriting for years to come. By the time he was 15, Paul's love for music had already taken root, and fate led him to meet someone who would change his life forever, John Lennon. The two met at a local church fete in 1957, and Paul impressed John by playing Eddie Cochran's 20 Flight Rock on the guitar. The duo quickly became inseparable, forming the core songwriting partnership of what would become the greatest band in history, the Beatles. In 1960, the Beatles, now including George Harrison and drummer Pete Best, were cutting their teeth in the clubs of Hamburg, Germany. They played long hours in seedy nightclubs, honing their craft and becoming a tight musical unit. By 1962, Ringo Starr had joined the band, replacing Pete Best, and the Beatles signed with manager Brian Epstein, setting the stage for their global domination. With the release of Please Please Me in 1963, the Beatles were propelled into superstardom. Paul's ability to craft memorable melodies was unmatched. Songs like All My Loving and Can't Buy Me Love showcased his knack for writing infectious, upbeat tracks. But it wasn't just his pop sensibilities that stood out. Paul's emotional depth came to the forefront with songs like Yesterday, a ballad that remains one of the most covered songs in history. By 1966, the Beatles had stopped touring, exhausted by the chaos and hysteria that surrounded their live shows. This allowed them to focus more on studio work, and Paul's creativity soared. Albums like Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band and the White Album saw Paul experimenting with different genres and pushing the boundaries of what pop music could be. Songs like Penny Lane and Helter Skelter were vastly different in style but showcased Paul's versatility. However, by 1969, tensions within the Beatles were reaching their peak. The bandmates were growing apart creatively, and Paul, in particular, was frustrated with the lack of direction. After the release of Abbey Road and Let It Be, the Beatles officially disbanded in 1970. But Paul wasn't about to slow down. That same year, Paul released his debut solo album McCartney, which featured the hit single, Maybe I'm Amazed. Determined to keep making music, Paul formed a new band, Wings, with his wife, Linda McCartney. Though critics were initially skeptical, Wings went on to achieve massive success throughout the 1970s, with hits like Band on the Run, Live and Let Die, and Jet. While Wings disbanded in 1981, Paul's solo career continued to thrive. Throughout the 1980s and 1990s, Paul worked with artists like Stevie Wonder and Michael Jackson, creating more chart-topping hits. His collaboration with Jackson on Say 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 became one of the best-selling singles of the decade. But Paul's influence extended beyond just music. He became an outspoken advocate for animal rights, environmental issues, and vegetarianism. His partnership with Linda McCartney in these causes added another dimension to his legacy, as they worked tirelessly to promote cruelty-free living. In the 1990s, the Beatles experienced a resurgence with the release of the Beatles anthology documentary and albums, and Paul reunited with George Harrison and Ringo Starr to record new music using unreleased vocals from John Lennon. This period gave fans a chance to relive the magic of the Beatles while also appreciating Paul's continued contributions to music. Fast forward to the 21st century, and Paul McCartney shows no signs of slowing down. He's released numerous solo albums, collaborated with younger artists like Kanye West and Rihanna, and even headlined massive events like the 2012 Olympics opening ceremony in London. His tours continued to sell out around the world, proving that his music resonates across generations. Now here's a fun fact for you. Did you know that Paul holds the record for the most #1 albums on the UK Albums Chart, with 22 across his career? Not only that, but he's also a two-time inductee into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, once as a Beatle and once as a solo artist. So, what keeps Paul going after all these years? In interviews, he said it's simple: he loves music. It's clear that his passion for creating, performing, and connecting with audiences has never faded. Before we wrap up, I've got a question for all you McCartney fans. What's your favorite Paul McCartney album, and why? Let me know in the comments below, and let's start a great conversation about this legendary artist. If you enjoyed today's journey through Paul McCartney's incredible life and career, make sure to give this video a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to Timelines Unlocked for more deep dives into the lives of your favorite celebrities. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.